Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Listen Up podcast. I hope you're all doing well. And today I have another guest with me. So, Dr. Who, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Michelle Hu. I am a pediatric audiologist. I've been practicing for over 15 years, and something that Vivian and I have in common is that we are hard of hearing or deaf, whichever preference that you use. Actually, I'm curious, what label do you like to use, Vivian?
I think I tend to use hard of hearing because I'm not like completely deaf, and I would also say, like I still have some low frequency hearing left, so I tend to call myself hard of hearing.
Okay. I use the words depending on who I'm talking
Hmm.
to. So right now, today, I'll say I'm a hard of hearing audiologist with bilateral cochlear implants. And like I said, I've been practicing for several years. I hope it's okay that I let our audience know that you and I worked together when I was your audiologist and you were the child in
Yeah.
in the audiology room or in the booth with me. And I remember spending time with your mom talking about my personal experience. I remember, you were just a little kid just playing, but that child is who I've created my community for. I'm on social media now with a Instagram handle called Mama Who Hears, who is my maiden name, and I started sharing my story, my personal experiences, and my professional experiences as an audiologist in hopes to help our community. You shared your mission with me that you really just want your audience to feel and be able to relate to people, to feel like they're not alone, and to gain some self-confidence, some tips and tricks. And I have that same exact mission too, specifically for hearing parents of deaf kiddos or deaf or hard of hearing kiddos, and I really want those kids just like you to know that you can do anything that you want in the entire world. So yeah, my story is a little bit, I I don't know, my everybody's story is unique. I was identified with mild hearing loss when I was a child, but with hearing aids pretty soon after that. My parents chose to use spoken language with me. And I got cochlear implants when I was in grad school to become an audiologist. And I have four kids now with my husband, and we're learning ASL at home, not just for fun, but to communicate. And it's part of my life. My family is a deaf and hard of hearing family because I am deaf and hard of hearing. So thank you so much for having me here today. It was wonderful getting email and message from you um, to catch up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I know it's like always an individual journey to sort of go through your hearing process. And of course, with me getting my cochlear implants and hearing aids at a young age, I think that was very much an individualized journey for me. But I'm really happy that you're here with me today, and I'm very excited. You started talking a little bit already about like sort of your personal journey and how you discovered your hearing loss. So I wanted to go a little bit further into what were like the high moments or what were some of the challenges and like moving on, seeing as now that you're a very vocal advocate for the deaf and hard of hearing community, like if there was a moment in your life where you really felt confident as an advocate and in your identity.
The first part were some ups and downs of my journey.
Yes.
The cause of my hearing loss or my hearing difference is because of two syndromes. One called enlarged vestibular aqueduct, where my cochlea wasn't formed all the way in utero, and Pendred syndrome, which is a syndrome that is associated with your thyroid and hearing sensitivity. Both of them often we often see children have a progressive type of hearing loss. So for me, every time I hit my head, my hearing would get worse. Um, and those were difficult. I would say when I was younger, it was much more difficult for my parents
Hmm.
because they had to watch it. I was a kid, I was confused, but everything that I needed was provided for me. I didn't have many responsibilities as a young child, as a toddler. When I was a senior in college, I had another sudden drop, and it had been probably a, almost a decade because when I was younger, it happened when I was under 10 years old. And there I was, 20, how old are you when you're in, maybe 21, 22. And I thought, what's going to happen? I chose a major. I want to go to law school. I want to go get married, have kids, and have a life. What I didn't know it. I didn't know what life could be like at that point with less hearing thresholds.
Mhm.
And I didn't have another form of communication other than hearing and spoken language. So that one was the scariest for me personally because I felt like I had a grip on life and I thought that that meant life wasn't reachable or tangible for me in that moment. That was the only time my hearing did come back, but I had already decided by then I'm going to go into audiology. My mom was telling me in the waiting room, you might make a good audiologist because you get what it's like in the clinic to wear hearing devices, to be part of hearing in a hearing world. You understand it. Or maybe if I didn't understand it at that age, I was living it and I could lend my personal experience with to my future patients. So I feel like that would be the most difficult time for me. Um, and the second part of your question, what was it? When did I start to feel really confident?
Yeah, like when did you truly feel secure, or if there was a particular, I guess, transition where you felt confident as a hard of hearing person and as an advocate?
I think there's no linear
Mhm.
path, right? I'm going up, down, maybe backwards, forwards, all over, kind of like a bouncy ball some days. And it really depends on how I'm feeling, what kind of environment I'm in, and who I'm communicating with. If you were to throw me into a room of people that I don't know and tell me I need to get to know these people, it's one thing if you walk into a room and you're like, just go in there and you don't have to do anything. You can be a fly on the wall. But if I have a job that requires communication and all of those people are hearing and only oral language or auditory verbal language, that would be really daunting to me because what kind of accents are they going to have? Is it going to be noisy? Are my hearing devices on? Do I get access to them? If you were to send me to an HLAA conference or a Hands and Voices leadership conference, where everything is inclusive and accessible, there's sign language interpretation, there's looped systems, there's closed captioning, all of those, all of my access needs were to be met, I would feel so confident and so calm and at home in that space because the playing field is leveled. But I think your question was more when in life did you start to feel comfortable? And I would say when I started sharing about my deafness with my first baby.
Mm.
When she was a toddler, I one of my fears was when is the day going to come that she's going to realize I'm not her superhero,
Mm.
that I'm not perfect, or I'm not the greatest human being or her favorite human. And I don't know why I was kind of focused on that, but I realized I get to share with her my experience now. So I started sharing with her, showing her my devices. I think she was maybe 15 months old. Showing her with her my devices, telling her mommy can't understand you, or telling her I need to see your lips. I started taking her to, baby signing classes at the library. And the spark in her eyes when we were using sign language or the teacher was using sign language, it's like, whoa, this is cool. I'm captivated. And so was I, and I started, let's use those at home. It may not be our first language, but there is a form of communication that we both can use. And I don't have to try so hard
Mhm.
because at 15 months old, your kid isn't going to be speaking clearly or have a huge repertoire or a huge vocabulary yet. But that's when I started gaining the confidence of, oh, you know what? I need to accept myself exactly the way I am and exactly the way I'm not in order for my own children to accept me too. Because how I think of my own disability is going to significantly affect how others think of my disability too. And I tell that to parents, how a parent may think of their child's disability significantly affects their child's um, way of seeing their own disability. So it was almost like a transformation as a mother that helped me as an adult see it because I realized she's my kid. I get to create my family right here, right now. It's not like I'm joining another family and trying to be a part of that. You know, she was born to me and my husband. So that's our family.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, like a really important note that you touched on because I think seeing you sort of fostering this understanding for someone else, it's kind of creating this like spark in yourself, like to really accept yourself and to spread that awareness and acceptance outside. And I think that's really important. And I think on that sort of same note, it really brings up the question about what does it really mean to be an advocate and what does advocacy mean and how you can like truly share that and broadcast to other people. So I think that um, goes into my next question about how really what does advocacy mean to you and how did it sort of make you share your experiences online?
I think kind of like the textbook or most expected idea of advocacy is fighting for or being the voice for a certain community or maybe person. Um, and I still stand by that. However, sometimes being a voice for someone or a group could also mean providing space for
Mhm.
them to step in. So it's like paving a path, giving strength and support to, as well as being a platform for others. And I didn't know what Mama Who Hears was going to be,
Mhm.
except I knew I missed the rapport, the relationships that I had with my patients and their parents. And I knew there's only one you, right? There's only one me. And there will be people that will resonate with you, will relation to you, but how would they know if you don't open your mouth or share? You don't have to say it. You could sign it. You could write it. And I think that advocacy really, I feel like I get to be a container, and I'm fiercely protective of that container for my community because what we've created has changed me
Mhm.
significantly and so much. I am so grateful for the people that I've met, the stories that I've heard, because I've gotten stronger in them sharing with me too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in being able to share your own story and put yourself out there, it really inspires other people to speak up too. And I think that's really the foundation of what advocacy is. It's like fostering this community of people that aren't afraid to share their opinions and aren't afraid to be themselves and share their identity. And I think that's a really important aspect. And also just the aspect of of course, we live in sort of the day and age where media and our technology just surrounds everything. And I think that is really a very helpful and an important baseline for advocacy because now you can really stretch like across the world and really connect with people from different countries, different continents. And it creates a much more widespread community. And I think it's such a special thing to be able to be in contact and to form connections with people that you wouldn't necessarily be able to otherwise if not for technology. And I think um, it just plays a really important role in advocacy, and that really sets off on a great note for like future improvements and future connections with people. And I think you previously mentioned sort of your own challenges with your hearing journey. And now that we're on this topic of advocacy, I think we see every day like there's all these sort of debunking myths, things surrounding the deaf or hard of hearing community. And I have some of my own, but I'd really like to hear what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that hearing people or non-hard of hearing people would have about like our community and what are like how can we challenge those misconceptions?
Two come to mind. One is that devices level the playing field. Just because we have hearing aids or just because we have cochlear implants or a Baha doesn't mean that we have access to all of the sounds and or the ability to hear and localize in noisy situations than a person with normal hearing could. Um, Noise is always going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We are listening electronically versus acoustically and with the ability to sort through noise that normal hearing people have. The second one is just because I speak clearly
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that I can hear everything that you say. However, I've been catching myself because I will whisper, I will mumble, and my husband, who's normal hearing, will say, I can't hear you. You're mumbling. I'm like, oh, and I'm here like, thought you're hearing. I thought you could hear everything. But that's not the case. Even people with normal hearing need you to speak clearly and enunciate. And I think that it's unfortunate that, hearing people aren't aware of that yet. And I say yet because we can teach them.
Yeah.
There's a learning opportunity there. I used to wish, why aren't they just aware? Why don't they get it? But how can someone get something if they've never truly experienced it?
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a lot of grace for people who don't yet know. And I approach it like, why be angry? Why, you know, keep on being frustrated when, okay, let's educate them. Let me show them.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends said that deaf people have as much to learn about the hearing world as hearing people have to learn about the deaf world. The only thing is, we who are deaf or hard of hearing have been living it for that much longer,
Yeah.
and they don't really get to live it yet. Maybe they'll develop hearing loss later. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you touched on a good one, especially the speech part. Like I face that in my own life, But I think there's also this like hearing people don't necessarily see the amount of work that it takes to get to the speech clarity level. Because I remember I had, I think, almost 10 years of speech therapy, and it was just very routinely basis. Where once or twice a week, I would just sit down for hours and I'd have to go through these speech like processes. And
Mhm.
so I think there's such a significant amount of daily work that we have to do in order to even, I guess, try to be on somewhat of the same level as hearing people are. I think there's this misconception that deaf or hard of hearing people can't do everything that hearing people can, which I think is really just a hurtful misconception to have because I think an example of this is especially in sports, where a lot of people think that like deaf people or even disabled people in general can't be good athletes. And I mean, of course, that's not true, and there's so many good representatives of that. And so I think it's really important to break that boundary of thinking that, oh, just because you have this certain disability means that you can't like achieve the same things that hearing people can. And so I think that's very important to touch on. And you mentioned your relationship with your own children and also the foundation for your Mama Who Hears platform and you aiding parents. So I wanted to ask, seeing as you offer a lot of resources, what do you think are some of the best pieces of advice for parents in supporting their hard of hearing children?
I talk a lot in my videos for hearing parents of deaf children. And I, so I started off making videos as a
Mhm.
video course. And I thought, well, they need a PDF of this, or they need, a picture of this or a graphic of that. It turned into a 125-page book that I call the essential guide for parents, hearing parents of deaf children. And my program is called My Child Has Hearing Loss, Now What?
Mm,
Because that's kind of the thought, that hearing parents think when their child is identified as deaf or hard of hearing. Um, I don't go into specifics of this is your child's hearing, this it's or your audiogram, or this is what they need. I go over audiology in general. I go over amplification and communication options. And I think the meat of it really is, let's take a look at your mindset.
mm,
What does it mean to you? What does it mean to your husband or your co-parent? What does it mean to your family? And when you can take a look at that and stand firmly in what it means to you, that helps give you core values or pillars on upon which you can make good choices for your family. And I think that when you talk to a family, or when a family, say, finds my community or finds my resources, yes, number one, it is, oh, there's somebody that my child could relate to, or there's someone who's grown up with what my child has, and I I want to learn from that person,
mhm,
as well as me helping them realize they are the perfect parent for that child. That you do have all of the resources, information, and the equipment right here and in your heart to raise that deaf or hard of hearing child as confidently as you dream,
mhm,
as confident, with as much confidence as you wish for them to have. And here is how to build that environment and support system for your deaf or hard of hearing child. So it really is, sit still, see where you're at, and find your core pillars of what matters to you and your family. Because I don't want to gatekeep information. I'm a provider. I'm here to provide you with resources and information so that you can make the best fit decisions for you and your family dynamic.
mhm.
Because I'm not the expert on your child. I may be an expert on pediatrics or pediatric audiology and my own experience, but you are the expert of your child and your family dynamic.
I think that's really good to enforce that perspective that every child's journey is individual, and so therefore every parent's approach needs to be different, and that you can provide this baseline guidance, but in the end, it's up to um, the parents to like really navigate the journey in a way that's best fitting for their child. And I mean, I'm someone, both of my parents are hearing, and I'm always very appreciative of how they navigated my hearing journey and how they're still navigating my hearing journey because they never made me feel like there was something that I wasn't going to be able to do. And they always, when there would be an obstacle or a bump in the road, they would always work with me to find solutions or to find opportunities. And so I think that constant changing and adapting is really important in the sort of parent-child journey with hearing. And that's really just an important point to enforce. And we talked about navigating a hearing world and what we talked about the misconceptions and what people get wrong about being deaf and hard of hearing. And seeing as currently our world is, of course, still not perfect for our community, what do you think are some of the most common or the most sort of um, most intense accessibility gaps in public spaces and different institutions for hard of hearing people?
Probably areas of transportation.
Mm.
Airports, I think I do see them getting better. I saw SFO, San Francisco, has a little quiet area,
Oh.
and all of the announcements are on a screen. And there's no loudspeakers. It's just nice and quiet, lounging area, waiting for you at your gate. And if there's an announcement, it comes up on the screen, and you should look over at it,
Mhm.
which is wonderful. I think the train station is terrible. I think airports is probably the worst one. But public spaces, places of gathering, noisy restaurants, those types of fun, amazing, adventurous spaces where everybody is. And I think it's getting better, with physically disabled people, things are getting better for those with vision concerns or vision loss. Um, things are getting more accessible. I think COVID really, really did bring to light the inaccessibility and in
Mhm.
non-inclusive areas for the deaf and hard of hearing
Yeah.
community is where it came up. Yeah, I mean, every deaf and hard of hearing journey is different and unique, even within the same family, even between two ears. My mom had a different experience of my deaf or hard of hearing journey than I did, and my dad had a different experience of it as well. So realizing that is just a lot of awareness there.
Yeah, I think you mentioned about how COVID really brought a lot of these inequalities to light. I really agree with that because especially with the protocols of having to keep social distance and having to wear a mask, I remember that was a huge obstacle for
It
me
took our
because
superpower away,
it
or
was
it took
so
a huge key for our
yeah,
way of communication.
yeah, like because even if I didn't realize it as much, I was always sort of subconsciously relying on lip reading. And so people being far away and me not being able to see their faces, it was so difficult during that time. And so I think times like COVID really reveal these deep-seated injustices for our hard of hearing community. And I think it's really important that it brought those things to light. And we talk a lot about um, misconceptions, these different injustices, and also how to navigate your own personal hearing journey. And I think one of the most important things about being a hard of hearing person is to have a sense of belonging and to feel like you belong somewhere and to feel confident in your identity. And so I wanted to know for you, what do you think it means to truly belong or to fit in somewhere as a hard of hearing person?
Oh man, I have a story for everything. Growing up, I was always on the fence. Am I Chinese or am I American?
Mhm,
Am I, you know, hearing? Am I not hearing? Am I the patient? Am I the professional?
mhm,
Am I a civilian or am I a military spouse?
mhm,
Um, and now it's kind of like, am I the patient or am I the professional? Am I the mom or am I the child? When you become a mother, you're learning a whole new journey on your own now, and it's not something that I had ever done before. I think that growing up, children especially are always looking for a sense of belonging.
mhm,
When you get older, or perhaps as you go through different types of experiences, I think when you settle down and you start to take a look at where am I at, where do I feel the most comfortable? You have to take a look at yourself. Where am I in my journey of accepting exactly how the way that I am and exactly the way that I'm not?
mhm,
Because there is no you. There is not another you. You are going to be the best person to be you. Why be another person when you could be you? And to belong truly is, I think I posted it today, um, to be in an inclusive environment,
mhm,
to feel missed when you're not there for
mhm,
what you have to offer. But I also think that it pairs with where are you in your own journey of self love and self acceptance?
mhm. I think that's a really beautiful and well put definition or a sort of how to sum up how to feel like you belong and what I guess constitutes belonging. I think your point of being an inclusive environment is really important because once you feel that the people that you are surrounded by truly love and accept you and don't treat you as if you are different or don't sort of push you down instead of bringing you up, I think that is really this base level beginning to truly accepting yourself. And I think also this sense of self-love and being at peace with yourself is so important because really you'll never truly feel like you belong or that you fit in until you are comfortable with yourself and you're comfortable with who you are. And so I think that is really just a vital part of this journey of belonging. And I think that we discussed a lot of like different aspects of the hearing journey that are all so diverse and beautiful. And it was a really great discussion. So I'm very thankful. And I'm really appreciative of all your work and your dedication to being an advocate and to sharing your experience because it's not easy and it's really important. And so I really want to thank you for being here with me today.
Absolutely. It was wonderful catching up with you. I am getting courage from you to start my new podcast, and I'm really excited for our message to come out. And I hope you continue this podcast through years and years and years.
Definitely will.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
absolutely.